My name is Barbara, but everyone calls me Barb. I never thought I'd be here, telling you this story. But here I am, and I'm hoping you'll listen. I live in a small town in Michigan, not far from the lakes, where everyone knows everyone. I've always tried to be kind, even when things got tough. And trust me, things got tough. I've worked hard all my life. I raised my daughter Sarah on my own after her father left when she was just a baby. We didn't have much, but I did my best. I worked as a nurse at the local clinic, doing long shifts just to make sure Sarah had everything she needed. She was my world. The moment she was born, I promised myself I would give her a better life than the one I had. Sarah was always bright and curious. From the time she could walk, she wanted to know how things worked. She'd pull apart my old radio just to see what was inside, then put it back together like she'd done it 100 times. She was smart, so smart, and I always told her, "You can be anything you want to be, Sarah. Don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise." She graduated from high school with honors, and I was proud of her. I knew she'd do great things. She decided to study law, and I helped her get through college, even if it meant cutting back on everything. I wanted her to follow her dreams. She eventually graduated with a law degree and landed a job at a prestigious law firm in Chicago. It was her dream come true, and I couldn't have been happier for her. But little did I know that success was going to come with a price. A price I never saw coming. It all started one night when Sarah called me. She had some big news. "Mom, I've just gotten a huge settlement for a case I worked on. They offered me $33 million, she said, her voice full of excitement. At first, I didn't quite understand. $33 million? My daughter, the girl I raised with love and sacrifice, had just gotten richer than I could have ever imagined. She was thrilled, and I was thrilled for her too. I couldn't believe it. She promised she'd take care of me, that I wouldn't have to work another day in my life. And I believed her. She was my daughter, after all. She'd always been the good-hearted girl I knew her to be. So I started thinking about all the things I could do with the money. Travel, relax, maybe even get a new house. We were going to live the good life. But it wasn't long before things started to change. 3 days later, Sarah called me again. This time, her tone was different, cold. "Mom, I need you to pack your things. I'm going to need the house to myself," she said. My heart sank. "What do you mean, Sarah?" I asked, confused. "I've always lived here. You just told me we were going to be fine." She sighed. "Mom, I need space. I've got a lot going on, and I don't think you should stay here anymore." Just like that, everything shifted. I stood there in shock, unable to speak. I had raised her, sacrificed so much for her, and now she was telling me to leave? My mind raced, trying to make sense of what was happening. I asked her why, but she just told me to pack and leave. It didn't make sense. The woman I raised, the woman who had always been so close to me, was now pushing me away. I had always been there for her, through the rough times, the struggles, the victories. And now, she was telling me I didn't belong anymore. It hurt in ways I can't even describe. I packed my bags, not sure where I was going. My own daughter had just thrown me out, and I didn't know how to fix it. She didn't even try to explain herself further. She just wanted me gone. But that wasn't the end. No, the story wasn't over yet. What happened next? Well, that's where everything got even more twisted. 3 days later, I got a phone call. It was Sarah. "Mom, I need your help," she said, her voice shaky. "I made a mistake." I didn't know what to say. How could she ask for my help after everything that had happened? After she kicked me out like I was nothing? I stared at the phone in disbelief. I wanted to scream, to tell her that I didn't owe her anything. But there was a part of me, the part that had always loved her unconditionally, that wanted to help. So what was I going to do? I stood frozen, unsure of whether I should pick up the phone or not. I had to make a choice. A choice that would change everything. But the question was, should I forgive her? Or should I let her figure things out on her own? And what had she really done? What did she mean by "I made a mistake"? The answers were waiting, but I wasn't sure if I was ready to hear them. Subscribe and comment where you are watching from. I sat there, staring at my phone, unable to bring myself to press the button to answer Sarah's call. The question in my mind was simple: why now? Why after everything? After she had thrown me out of the house without a second thought, why was she suddenly asking for my help? My thoughts swirled in a tornado of confusion. A part of me wanted to ignore the call, to let her face whatever mess she had gotten herself into. After all, she was the one who'd pushed me away. But another part of me, the part that was a mother, couldn't help but wonder, what had happened? Was she in trouble? Had something gone wrong with the money? The $33 million that had seemed like such a blessing just days before? I took a deep breath and pressed the green button. "Hello?" I said, my voice unsure, almost trembling. "Mom," Sarah's voice was soft, and I could hear the panic in it. "I don't know who else to turn to. Please, I need your help." I felt a pang in my chest, a mixture of relief and anger. Relief that she was talking to me, but anger because she had shut me out so easily just days ago. "Sarah," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "what's going on? You told me to leave." I stopped myself before I could go any further. This wasn't the time to rehash everything that had happened. "I know, Mom," she interrupted, sounding like she was on the verge of tears. "I don't know what I was thinking. I was overwhelmed, and everything just happened so fast. The money, the settlement, it changed everything. I changed. And I don't know who I am anymore." Her words struck me hard. I never thought money would change Sarah. She had always been grounded, always so kind and humble. How could something like this have such a hold on her? "Mom, I need your help," she repeated, almost pleading now. "Please. I've made a mess of everything. I don't know how to fix it, but I need you." I closed my eyes, taking a long, shaky breath. Part of me wanted to say no. I wanted to tell her that she had made her bed and now had to lie in it. But another part of me, the part that had loved her and cared for her all her life, couldn't bear the thought of her being lost and alone. "Where are you, Sarah?" I asked softly. She gave me the address, a luxury condo in the city, far away from the home we'd shared. It wasn't just a house, it was our home, a place where we had shared memories, where we had celebrated birthdays, holidays, and everything in between. But now, it was just another reminder of the distance between us. I didn't know what to expect when I got there. Was she really sorry? Was she truly in trouble? Or was this just another way for her to get what she wanted? As I drove to the condo, my thoughts raced. I tried to imagine what had happened over the past few days. How could she go from being my sweet, caring daughter to someone who had cast me aside like I didn't matter? Was this all just about the money? Was she embarrassed by me? By her humble roots? The condo building was as luxurious as Sarah had described. Tall, sleek and modern, with floor-to-ceiling windows that gave a breathtaking view of the city skyline. I couldn't help but feel out of place as I entered the lobby, surrounded by people in suits, businessmen and women walking briskly through the hallways. It all felt so foreign to me. When I reached her door, my heart raced. Was this really the same person who had once climbed into my lap as a little girl and told me all her secrets? Was this the same Sarah who would hold my hand when she was scared and tell me everything would be okay? I knocked, and the door opened almost immediately. Sarah stood there, looking nothing like the confident, high-powered lawyer I had seen on TV. Her face was pale, and her eyes were bloodshot from crying. She looked small, fragile, like the girl I had raised. "Mom," she whispered, her voice shaking. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. I don't know how to fix this, but I need you. Please." I didn't know what to say. My heart ached for her, but I couldn't ignore the pain I felt. She had pushed me away, and now she was begging for my help. Was this all real? Or was there more to this than she was letting on? I stepped inside, and she quickly closed the door behind me. The condo was immaculately furnished, luxury furniture, shiny marble floors, and artwork on the walls. It was everything Sarah had ever dreamed of. But now, it didn't feel like a home. It felt empty. "Tell me what happened," I said, my voice calm but firm. Sarah took a deep breath, her eyes darting around the room as if she couldn't focus. "I made a bad investment. I trusted the wrong people. People who promised me a way to double the money. They took everything, Mom. I've lost it all." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. How could this happen? She had been so careful, so meticulous in everything she did. She was always cautious with money. "You lost it all?" I repeated, trying to wrap my head around her words. "What do you mean?" Where is the $33 million, Sarah? She looked at me, her face filled with shame. It's gone. All of it. And now they're threatening me, Mom. They want more. I don't know who to trust. I've made such a mess of everything, and I could see the panic in her eyes. The same fear that had been there when she was a child, the same fear I had seen when she faced difficult moments in her life. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. That's them, Sarah whispered, looking terrified. They've found me. I don't know what to do, Mom. I don't know how to fix this. My heart raced as I heard the knock at the door. I had no idea what was coming next, but I knew it was about to change everything. Should I open the door? Should I protect my daughter from whatever was out there? But what if this wasn't just a mistake? What if there was something more sinister behind it all? I stood there frozen, unsure of what the right thing to do was. What would happen next? I stood there, staring at the door, unsure of what to do. The knock echoed through the silence of the room, and my heart raced in my chest. Sarah's face was pale, and she clutched her hands together, her fingers trembling. I could see the fear in her eyes, a fear that reminded me of the little girl she once was, the one who needed me to protect her from the world. Who is it? I asked, my voice trembling slightly, despite my best efforts to stay calm. I don't know, Sarah whispered, her voice shaky. They said they would come. They must have tracked me here. Her words hung in the air like a heavy fog, and the weight of what she was saying began to sink in. Whoever was at that door wasn't someone she wanted to see. My mind raced. Who were these people? How had they found her so quickly? And what were they going to do if we didn't do something? I didn't have answers, and that terrified me more than I could express. I glanced at Sarah, who was now pacing nervously. She was no longer the confident lawyer I had once admired. She was a scared, vulnerable woman who had lost everything, her money, her stability, and now, it seemed, her sense of control. I need you to calm down, I said softly, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. We'll figure this out. Just take a deep breath. But Sarah didn't seem to hear me. Her eyes were darting around the room, as if looking for some escape, some way out of the mess she had gotten herself into. The knock came again, louder this time, and Sarah jumped, her breath catching in her throat. I had no idea what to expect, but one thing was clear, whatever was on the other side of that door was about to change everything. I moved slowly, cautiously, toward the door. My heart pounded in my chest, and every instinct told me to be ready for whatever came next. I hesitated for a moment, wondering if opening the door was the right choice. But before I could make up my mind, the doorbell rang again, this time more insistent, more urgent. Answer it, Sarah urged me, her voice barely audible. Please, Mom. They'll make things worse if we don't. I turned the doorknob, my hand shaking as I slowly pulled the door open. Standing there in the hallway were two men. They were both tall, dressed in dark suits, with cold expressions on their faces. Their eyes scanned me quickly, and I immediately knew they weren't here for a friendly conversation. One of them stepped forward, his gaze fixed on Sarah. Miss Sarah Jacobs? He asked, his voice low and menacing. Sarah stiffened, and I could feel the tension in the air. Yes, she said, her voice barely a whisper. What do you want? The man didn't answer right away. He looked over at the other man, who simply nodded. The first man then turned back to Sarah, his face hardening. You've got something that belongs to us, he said, his tone cold and threatening. And we've come to collect. I felt my stomach twist in knots. Something that belonged to them? My mind raced as I tried to figure out what they were talking about. Was it the money? Was it really all gone? Or was there something else at play here? Sarah's face drained of color. She stepped back, her hands shaking. I don't have it anymore. I lost everything, you have to believe me. The man stepped forward again, closing the distance between them. That's not our problem, he said coldly. You've got until tomorrow to get us what we want. If you don't, there will be consequences. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. What consequences? And what exactly had Sarah gotten herself into? I could feel the weight of their gaze on me now, the coldness of their stare making the room feel like it was closing in around us. These men weren't here to negotiate. They were here for something much darker. You can't just take her things, I said, trying to sound confident, trying to stand up to these men who seemed so sure of themselves. She doesn't owe you anything. The man smirked, his expression showing no sign of remorse. She owes us everything, he said. And we don't take kindly to people who think they can walk away from their debts. Before I could respond, the second man grabbed Sarah's arm, his grip tight. Time's running out, he said, his voice low and threatening. Get it by tomorrow, or things will get ugly. They turned and walked away without another word, leaving Sarah and me standing there in stunned silence. The door clicked shut behind them, and I could feel the adrenaline start to wear off. The fear that had gripped me for those few moments lingered, but now I was left with 1,000 questions, none of which had easy answers. What just happened? I whispered, my voice shaking as I turned to face Sarah. I didn't know who else to turn to, Mom, she said, her eyes brimming with tears. They've been coming after me for weeks. I thought I could fix it on my own, but it just kept getting worse. I never thought it would get this bad. I could hear the desperation in her voice, the same desperation I'd heard before when she was younger, when she'd gotten herself into trouble and begged me to help her get out. But this was different. This wasn't just a small mistake. This was something bigger. I had always protected her, always tried to keep her safe, but this was a whole new level of danger. And I wasn't sure how to protect her from it. I felt a knot form in my stomach. Tomorrow? What were we going to do by tomorrow? And who were these men really? Were they truly just after money, or was there something else that we didn't understand? I'm scared, Mom, Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper. I know, sweetheart, I replied, pulling her into a hug. But we'll figure this out. We'll get through this together. But as I held her in my arms, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were just beginning to scratch the surface of something much darker. What would happen tomorrow? Would they really come back for what they wanted? And how far were they willing to go to get it? There were so many unanswered questions, and I didn't know how much longer we had before everything spiraled completely out of control. The night was long. Sarah couldn't sleep, and neither could I. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw their faces, the two men standing at our door, their cold, calculating expressions etched into my mind. I could still hear their words, their threats echoing in my ears. You've got until tomorrow. Tomorrow. It seemed so close, but in a way, it felt like a lifetime away. Sarah sat on the couch, her hands clenched into fists as she stared at the floor. Her thoughts were clearly a million miles away, and I could see the weight of everything on her shoulders. The woman I once knew, strong, capable, full of promise, was now drowning in fear and regret. And I couldn't help but wonder, how had it all gone so wrong? I sat down next to her, trying to offer comfort, but the silence between us was thick. There was so much left unsaid, so many things I didn't understand. I wanted to ask about the money, about the bad investments and the people she had trusted. I needed answers, but I didn't know if I was ready for them. You didn't tell me everything, Sarah, I said softly, breaking the silence. Who are these people? What exactly did you do? Sarah flinched, as if my words had cut through the heavy air. She wiped her eyes, but the tears didn't stop. I didn't want you to know, Mom. I didn't want you to be part of this. I thought I could fix it on my own. But now I see how stupid that was. I waited for her to continue, knowing there was more to the story. I needed to know. We needed to know what we were up against. They came to me with an investment opportunity, she began, her voice shaky. They promised that if I put in a certain amount of money, I'd make millions. I was skeptical at first, but they seemed so legitimate. I thought I could handle it. I thought it would be a smart move for my future. She paused, taking a shaky breath. I was wrong. The whole thing was a scam. They took everything, and now they're coming for more. My heart sank as I processed what she had said. A scam? Sarah, the lawyer, had been duped? I couldn't believe it. But you're a lawyer, I said, my voice filled with disbelief. You're supposed to know better. How did you let this happen? I didn't know who I was dealing with, Mom, she whispered, her voice breaking. They played me. They're ruthless. And now I owe them. And they don't care what they have to do to get their money. I could see the fear in her eyes, the way she trembled at the thought of what they might do next. I wasn't sure if she was scared for herself or for me. But I knew one thing, we were in this together, and I wasn't going to let her face this alone. Sarah, I said, my voice firm. We're going to get through this. We'll figure it out, okay? But we need to trust each other. I need you to be honest with me. I need you to tell me everything, so we can come up with a plan." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I don't know what to do, Mom. I've tried everything. I can't go to the police. I can't risk them getting involved. These people, these men, they have connections. And I don't know who else to turn to." I felt a chill run down my spine. What had Sarah gotten herself into? Who were these people? What kind of power did they have? The knock at the door, loud and insistent, broke the silence and sent a jolt of panic through both of us. My heart skipped a beat. They were back. "Mom, they're here," Sarah whispered, her voice filled with dread. "They're here." We both stood up at the same time, staring at the door as if it were some kind of monster waiting to get in. The knock came again, and this time, it was followed by a voice, deep and menacing. "Sarah, open the door. We need to talk." It was the same voice from earlier. The man who had been in charge. I could feel my breath catch in my chest, my body frozen in place. What were they going to do? What did they want from us? Sarah glanced at me, her eyes wide with terror. "Mom, please," she said, her voice trembling. "I can't do this anymore. I don't know how to make it stop." I grabbed her hand, trying to stay calm, trying to steady myself so I could think clearly. "We have to face them, Sarah. We can't let them control us. We'll handle this. Together." But even as I said the words, I wasn't sure what that meant. How could we possibly handle this? What could we do to stop these men, these ruthless individuals who had already taken everything from us? I walked slowly toward the door, my heart pounding in my chest. The knock came again, louder this time, as if they were losing patience. I took one last glance at Sarah, who was now standing behind me, her hands clasped tightly together. I opened the door. The man was standing there, his eyes cold and unfeeling. Behind him, I could see the other man, lurking in the shadows, watching us with an air of quiet menace. "You've got until tomorrow," the man said, his voice icy. "If we don't get what we want, there will be consequences. Don't test us." The threat was clear, and the finality in his voice left no room for negotiation. I wanted to argue, to fight back, but I knew that wasn't an option. Not yet. Not when we didn't have anything to protect ourselves with. "Please," Sarah whispered, stepping forward. "I don't have the money. I lost it all." The man's eyes narrowed, and he stepped closer to Sarah. "Then you'd better find a way to get it. We don't take no for an answer." With that, they turned and walked away, leaving us standing in the doorway, both shaken and silent. As the sound of their footsteps faded, I looked at Sarah, and she looked back at me. I could see the fear in her eyes, the same fear I had seen in so many people over the years. But there was something else in her gaze too. A determination. "Mom," she said quietly, her voice steadying. "I can't let them win. I'm going to fix this. I have to." And in that moment, I realized something. We weren't going to give up. Not now. Not ever. But the road ahead would be dangerous, and I had no idea what we were going to have to do to survive. What would Sarah do to fix this? What choices would she have to make? Would she go to extremes to get the money back? I didn't know. But one thing was certain, the fight wasn't over. And we were going to face whatever came next together.